Hi, welcome to another Learn, Grow, Invest video. I'm Jermaine, co-founder of this community. Today, I'm going to be building a very simple stock portfolio tracker. This was one of the very first things that was asked of us when we started going live. So I sincerely apologize to those who have been waiting for this for a very long time. So we're going to be building out this dashboard in 3 parts, right? This one is going to be very basic, right? We're just going to be pulling in some data from the stock exchange, populating that into a table, entering our stock transactions, and then seeing that on a dashboard. I may preview, depending on the time that I have, some charts, but I'm trying to keep this video under 30 minutes. So if I'm close to the 30-minute mark at the end, I'll just pause it and go to the second step, where we'll start to add some more transactions, maybe build out the dashboard a little bit more. And then maybe for the third one, I'll maybe just do a Q&A where persons ask me questions. Maybe they want to see some specific features. I'll try to build it out that way. So hopefully you find some value in this video. If it's your first time here, welcome. Let's get started. So we are a Bible-based investment community, and as such, we start every live session with a word of prayer. So Lord, we thank you so much for today. Thank you for the fact that we're able to meet as a community and learn the basics of investing. Father, we pray for wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. In your name we pray, amen. All right, so let us get started with just one quick source of data. Right, because I want you to think about how we're going to be building this out, right? So let me share my screen. So what you're seeing is the source that we're going to be pulling the data from. So this is a Mayberry trade sheet. Now, the principles that I'm going to show here can work for any stock market in the world, not just the Jamaica Stock Exchange. So depending on where you're watching this video from, you should be able to apply these steps, build a tracker yourself, and really pull in any form of data from the web and build a dashboard or build tables out of it. All right, so I'm going to be using the Mayberry trade sheet. So let's look at the data that it shows us, right? So we have the company name here. That's a ticker. We have the closing price. So this would be the price that it ended this particular trading day as. And we see that, well, this is saying Tuesday, March 22. So this is actually yesterday, and that's a good thing. Hopefully, let me actually refresh it to see if it's pulling data for today. Okay, so it's showing today, which is fine. Once you update it, I'll show you how to refresh the data each day. But maybe in the second video, what we'll do is add a refresh button so that we don't have to go to the same place to refresh it. It shows us the change per day. It shows us the PE ratio, shows us a 12-month projected PE. Then it shows price to book, dividend yield, etc. Now, personally, I don't know if I trust the data that I see in the dividend yield columns. So I've decided not to use that. I'm not going to use change, not going to use projected PE or price to book. We're going to take 3 columns today: the company, the closing price, the PE. All right. So let's go to our Excel file now. This is, let me zoom in here. This is going to be an extremely basic. I'm going to be building everything from scratch, so I'm not going to skip any steps here. All right. So the very first thing that you want to do is connect to your data source. So this is a blank Excel file. I'm going to take the URL from the trade sheet here. That's it's mayberryinv.com/trade sheets. So I've copied and pasted it here, and I'll paste it in the chat for those who are here watching it live. So I go to data source. Now I can choose from web here. Hopefully you're able to see it. So once I hit from web, you'll see this dialog box on your screen. Just paste in that URL, click OK. So what it's doing is showing us a preview of the data, right? So there are two things here. We see a document, and then we see a table 0. I'm not going to explain the details of this now. Table 0 has the data that we need, because we see company here, we see closing price, we see PE. Those are the 3 columns we need. Now, if usually I would just tell you to just load it, but I'm actually going to make a change because I don't want it to be company because of the work that we're going to be doing later on. So I'm actually going to change this column name. So I'm going to choose transform data. I'm not going to do anything complex, don't worry. So once I hit transform, I'm just going to remove the columns that I'm not going to need. All right, so I'm going to remove that. I'm going to remove these. All right, simple stuff I'm doing here. And then I'm just going to rename this column the ticker, because it's really the stock ticker. It's not explicitly the company. And I'm going to want this set to currency. So I'm just changing, that's all I'm doing, not doing anything else. Then I'm just going to hit close to the left, close and load. So I'm loading that data now into Excel, all right? Hopefully you're following me so far. If you have any questions, let me know. So we're seeing the data that we saw on the Mayberry trade sheet, right? All the data is here. So I'm seeing the ticker, I'm seeing the closing price, I'm seeing the PE. That's all we need for now. And if you look down here, we're seeing all of the data for today. And it's called table 0. I'm actually going to update the table name. So the table design view is up right now. So I'm just going to change this to trade sheet. Is that that's what we want to refer to it as. So when I use the formula to pull the data from the table, I'm going to be able to reference the trade sheet table. All right, so hopefully this makes sense. All right, then I'm also going to name, this is called, we can call it source if that's fine, because we really don't need to view the sheet after we're done. And then now this one is where we're going to enter our transactions. And we're going to have one for the portfolio. And as I said, if we do have time, we'll start to build out a very basic dashboard. Okay, all right. So thanks for that. All right, so I'm zoomed all the way in. So let's look at some basic transactions that I can enter. All right. So I'm going to be creating a very simple table with the date, the name of the company, the ticker, the number of units that I've bought, the total cost. That's including fees. I'm not going to separate them now. And then the unit price, right? Because if it is that if it's $1 per share, and then if I include fees, then that total cost is going to be higher than the $1 per share. So I want the unit price factoring that total cost, right? Hopefully that makes sense. So what I'm going to share here as well is an image, right? So this image, what I'm bringing up now, is going to be an order. So let me zoom in. So this is an order I placed for Fontana earlier this year, right? So the buying price that I saw was $7.85. But if you notice here, when the order was filled, my total cost was $269,508.95. So what I'm going to do is just simply take this value, divide it by the units, and that's going to give me my unit price per share. All right, let me know in the chat if you're following me. All right, so that's the value that we're working with. So let's say this was January 20th. It's Fontana Limited. Ticker, as we know, is FTNA. It's 34,000 units. And let's look at that total cost figure again. So it's 269,508.95. I'm typing it in the chat so that I can remember it. And as I said, what I'm doing here is just including all the fees into one, right? Because I don't really see the need to separate it because it doesn't matter what I'm paying. Renee, what's not clear? When you say the image is not clear, the image that I just showed, let me know, all right? All right, so let's just say that this is my cost, and let me zoom in just a little bit more. Hopefully that's very clear, right? You should be seeing everything, right? Okay, so that is my cost, and I'm just gonna touch the formatting up a bit here. So I bought 34,000 units of Fontana at 269,000. All right, that is what I paid. So the unit price now, though you saw the buy price on the image at $7.85, what we know is that that's not the actual cost per share. So to get that, we're going to divide the total cost, which is in cell E3, by units in B3, and that's it. So I would have paid $7.93 per share. So this is a number that matters to me, not $7.85, which would have been the buy price at the time, but the actual price that I've paid per share. All right, so I'm just going to do some other transactions here very quickly to just fill up this table. All right, I'm just going to use the same date, but of course you'd use the date that applies to you. I think this is about 30,000 units. And let's say I bought this at IPO, for example. Let's say I bought some Fesco shares as well. Let's say I bought, how much did I buy? I bought 50,000 units. And I bought this for I'll work out that unit cost very soon. And let's say I bought some JFT at IPO. Let's say I bought 40,000 units there, and I paid 40,172.50 because that's what it gave me. All right. So what I'm going to do here now to calculate everything for the unit price, I'm just going to pull this formula down. And so what this is giving me is a unit price per share for all of these stocks that I've bought, right? So the day that I bought Fesco was the day that it was all-time high. I wanted 50,000 units. I paid 435,000 for it. And so my average price is $8.70. All right. So I'm just going to format these thousands just a little bit cleaner to see. And I'm just going to convert this as a table. Now, I'm not really going to use this for anything now, but I just find it's good practice to format it as a table just in case you need to use it for something else later on. All right. So hopefully you guys are still with me. These are my transactions. So every time I buy, I just enter the information here. I'm going to take the number of units that I've bought. I'm going to take the total cost from the receipt that I get on JTrader or from my broker. That total cost that I've paid, regardless of fees, I'm going to put that total value here. Then I just divide it by the units, and that gives me my cost per share. All right. Hopefully you guys are still with me. Now we're going to build out the portfolio tracker now. That's what we're going to do next. I'm going to zoom in again so that you can see this one very clearly. So now I'm going to build out the fields that I need for the tracker. All right, so I'm going to start again with the symbol. I want to track industry, so I'm going to use industry here. I'm going to get the number of units. I'm going to get cost price. And that's that actually unit price is what I want to use here, because that's what we have it as. My total cost. I'm going to get the market price now, and this is what I'm going to be pulling from the Mayberry trade sheet. I'm going to calculate from that now a market value for my shares. And then I'm going to bring in the PE as well. Let's say that I want to be sure to sell it when the PE is too high, for argument's sake, right? And I want gain loss percentage, right? So these are the fields that we're starting with. I think this is a good cross section of everything that is needed. So you remember those companies that we bought, right? We bought Fontana. That's from the retail industry, about 34,000 units. In terms of unit price, I'm just going to be pulling that data from right here. So the unit price, 793. And about spur tree, 30,000 units. This one, I know it's manufacturing. $30,000 units is what was bought. Bought it at IPO, so my average price is $1. Then I bought Fesco and JFP. So Fesco, JFP. Fesco, I think, is classified as retail, and JFP, as we know, is manufacturing. So we really have only two categories for now, keeping it very simple, 50,000, 40,000. All right, if you have questions, just leave them in the comments and I'll answer them as soon as I can. $8.70, and I believe this is the same. All right, so I'm just taking these figures from the table that we had before. I'm going to format this because I just like to see it that way. So my total cost here, I can just multiply units by unit price. So that's C3 by D3. If I pull this down, and I'm just going to convert this to a table again, so that it's just a little easier to work with. And then all the simplest thing I can do here is just add the auto sum, and it will show me how much money I've spent. All right, let's maximize that. So here's the main thing that you're probably wanting to see now. We want to be able to pull this market price, because tomorrow the price is going to change, the day after that the price is going to change. So I want to pull it directly from the source. Now this is a Mayberry trade sheet that we've pulled in. If you missed it, just replay the start of this video. So I want to pull this into my portfolio. So we're going to use a function called XLOOKUP. So I don't have the time to explain how the formula works, but you're going to watch to see what it does. And then from that, we'll be able to get the price in. So I'm just going to rename the table a little bit so that for future reference, I can just work with it a little easier. Okay. I'm just renaming my table to just standard practice. All right. So we're going to pull the market price. I'm going to use a function called XLOOKUP. Right. And then I want to look up the value that's in cell A3. All right, that's the first cell. And then I'm going to tell it where to look up that value from, right? So if you remember, the table is called trade sheet. That's what we called it. And we want the ticker column So that's what we're looking up and matching it. And then now we want to return the trade sheet and the closing price. Just gonna close that. So that's it, right? So it's pulled in the price as at today, because we saw on the trade sheet that the closing price for Fontana was $10. Closing price for Spur3, Fesco, JFPA are right here. So from that, I know that once I'm using this moving forward, it will just, once I hit refresh for this data source here, it will update these prices. I don't have to track this manually anymore. So let's do some other calculations here. I want to get now the market value of everything that I have. So I'm just going to multiply units. That's in C3. I'm going to multiply that by the market value. That's F3. So this is giving me now the value for everything that I have in my portfolio. And this is the market value of it. So if I was to sell everything today, before fees, I would have 802,000, and this is my total cost. So we know that with fees and taxes, I wouldn't be making much if I sold everything today, but it's just an example. Let's pull in the PE ratio as well. So we're going to use the same function. We're going to look up A3 again. I'm going to use a trade sheet. And then we want to return trade sheet price to earnings ratio. And we're just going to close that out. So this is giving me the PE for the stocks that I have in my portfolio. As it changes each day, it will refresh. So again, if I see the PE for Fesco going crazy, if I want to, I can just now, maybe take a decision based on that, because I'm able to see the PE right here in the same table that I'm tracking. I know if I want to see gain and loss, let us just do a simple calculation here. We can just minus the market value. That is G3. Let's minus that from total cost. That's E3. So let me zoom across here so you can see that. So this is the gain loss per stock, right? So we know that I'm at a loss for Fesco right now based on the price that I bought it. So that's why it's showing here in brackets, because that's my default formatting. If I wanted to show it as a negative or highlight it in red, I can do that. And if I just want to see my total gain or loss from the drop down, I can just choose sum, and it's showing me that the profit I've made is $26,000. And then if I want to get that as a percentage, I can simply just divide the gain loss by the total cost, right? So that's I3 divided by E3. Then I can simply just format this as a percentage, right? So I know I've done a lot there, so I'm just going to break right now. Hopefully you guys are still following me. All right, hopefully I haven't lost you all. So I'm going to recap what I've done so far, right? So I've pulled in my data source is the Mayberry trade sheet. I took the URL, went to from web, added it as a data source. So if I go to query and connections right now, I'm seeing the table that I brought in from the trade sheet. So it shows here Mayberry inv.com/trade sheets. That's where the data is from. I deleted all the rows that the columns that I didn't need. So I'm just pulling 3 columns from the Mayberry trade sheet. That's the ticker, closing price, and the PE ratio. PE is price to earnings ratio. It's something that you can use to value companies. Craig, this is not my actual portfolio. I definitely tried not to do that, right? Okay, all right, small team, but I'm going through it now. I'm kind of recapping the steps now, and all that lookup did, right? So this is our data source. I've pulled in everything. These are all the stocks on the market, right? I don't own all the stocks, but then I need a way to update the values automatically so that I don't have to manually enter them. So I've pulled this in from a website. It stays in this sheet called source. Then I have all of my transactions here. So on these days, I purchased these stocks. I bought these number of units at this total price. So I use these two values and calculate how much I paid per stock. And so I just simply divided this total cost by units. That gives me my unit price. And this is just for tracking purposes. I'm not doing anything else with the sheet right now. Next, we have the portfolio, which shows now the stock that we've purchased. We're adding industry here because we want to see the makeup of our portfolio. Maybe we have too many stocks in manufacturing, so we want to be able to distinguish them. We have the units that we purchased. We have the unit price calculated in that same table. We brought over total cost because we want to be able to calculate gain and loss. The lookup is the part that gets many persons confused. All we did was use a function called X lookup. This function pulls from another sheet based on this column, and then it simply returns the closing price in this column here. So tomorrow, when this sheet updates, I just simply hit refresh, and it will give me the prices for tomorrow. So I don't have to update each manually anymore, right? Once I have the market price, then I can determine the market value. The market value is the price that I'd be able to sell it at the most current prices. Now, of course, tomorrow morning, I may go to try and sell it and the prices are different. But at least at this point, if I wanted to plan and say, okay, how much money do I have? That's 802,000. That's the amount that I have now as my portfolio value. If I want to know how much I've spent overall, it's 775,000. And if you want to verify this, you can just go to your transactions, sum this, and it will give you the same total. All right. So next, we brought in the PE ratio because PE is one of the ways, not the only way, one of the ways we can track how the stock is trading in terms of valuation. Now, there are other things that we could do. So, for example, I could take this PE, look at the industry PE, and then see whether or not this is higher or lower than the industry. We're not going to do that in this video because we're almost out of time. And then we have gain or loss, which we simply minus the market. We minus the total cost from the market price, and then we gave that a percentage value. All right. So this is our portfolio tracker. It's not very complex, right? Those who are experienced with Excel know that we can do a lot more. I wanted to do this in 30 minutes. We're actually at the 30-minute mark. So I can add charts and graphs, Abigail. That's actually the whole point, right? So let's say that I added some units, right? Orville is asking what happens if I add more. So let's say that today I purchased, let me insert a row here, all right? So let's say that I purchased L.E.A.R.N today. You notice once I type in L.E.A.R.N here, the market price is pulled down, right? It's showing the PE. Gain loss is showing an error right now because there are columns that it needs before it can calculate that. So let's say that I just fill in the rest of these. Let's say I bought 20,000 units. I bought it at IPO, so my price is likely to be the same here. I paid 20,200. I got 20,000 shares. I was very lucky. And so based on the current price, I'm up 43,000 there, and I'm up 215%. All right. If I add any more stocks here, Let's say I bought Risinco. Once I add the stock, this is populated. Once I fill in the other values here, it can now show me gain and loss, etc. All right. So I'm just going to do I'm just going to do one or two charts. I really have to wrap up this video soon. So you get the idea. All right. So I'm going to delete this. I did not actually buy L.E.A.R.N, so I'm going to delete that as well. So this is our portfolio, right? So there are a couple of things that I can do from here. I can create a pivot table, which makes it very easy for me to create pivot charts, or I can just start doing charts from this table. All right, so I'm just going to do a couple of basic charts here, and then we're going to close out the video, right? So if I wanted to do, let's say that I wanted to see my portfolio allocation. Let's say I wanted symbol and market value. I can go to insert here, recommended chart. Say I wanted to do a pie chart. Click OK. And I'm just going to move this chart to a separate page. Move it to the dashboard page. Click OK. So I have to zoom out a bit now. So this is the chart for my portfolio, right? This is showing, well, I can rename this because this is really showing me the allocation really, right? Because I can use this now to show percentages, right? So this would be the allocation of my portfolio, right? So 42% of my portfolio is in Fontana, 13 in Spur Tree, 38 for Fesco, 7 for JFP. All right, so I can now do as many charts as I want to and build out a dashboard section. Once I have the data that I need, I can build it out. All right, so that's what we're going to do in the second video. We're just going to build out some charts that we could do from this data. It's all going to be based on this. I'll add some more transactions so we can see maybe a little bit more realism to the portfolio. And then we're going to look at the options for charts, what type of data you might want to show, etc. So I really hope this video was helpful for you. Let me know in the comments below if this was valuable to you. Let me know the features that you'd want to see. I kept it very basic because right now I'm figuring a lot of persons don't know how to take the first step. So we're going to lay the foundation by just connecting to the data source. Once we have that data, we enter our transactions, then we can start building the dashboard to the way that we want it. So things like showing how the portfolio has changed over time, showing my overall amount. Maybe I have real estate, maybe I have a car that I want to add to it. So maybe I want to see different assets. I can do a lot of things with this data. And if I'm tracking it over the next 2-3 years and I have like 100 transactions, and I can now see more meaningful data from the charts, etc. All right. So thank you for watching this video. Please leave it a like if you found value. We'll talk about it in the Telegram group if you have any questions, or you can leave a comment under the video. Remember, we have a free class coming up this weekend on our Facebook group. So feel free to join it. It is free to join. It's on budgeting. So please check that out. And if you're brand new to investing, we have a lot of videos on our channel to help you. Feel free to go there. Let me see if there are any questions before I close. Are there any questions for me before I close out? I'm happy you guys enjoyed the video. All right, so answered PE already. For those who could not see, I'm sorry about that. Hopefully you were able to see everything that was there. All right, great. So I think there are no questions, but if you're watching this on a replay, leave it in the comments. I'll usually respond within a day. Thank you so much. Please do enjoy the rest of your day.